Hello everyone. This is a short presentation on Maggie Hume's Chapter 1 Feminist Criticism from Women as Contemporary Critics. This focuses on the three assumptions in feminist criticism as explained by Maggie Hume and also the three problems that are enmeshed in feminist criticism. Maggie Hume is the author of Feminist Criticism and she's been the coordinator of women's studies at East London. Feminist literary criticism redefines literary concepts in terms of gender in order to create a new literary landscape. Now, who is the woman as a writer? This is particularly important in analyzing what feminist criticism is about because a woman is a writer from where she is allowed to write. That has been the initial phase in which she starts to write. So, who is the woman as a writer? Does she write from what she is allowed to write, or does she write from an innate sense of reflection? And who is she as a writer also constitutes the canon of writing that she brings about. And the woman as a writer is a very recent phenomenon where she starts writing from her reflections and interpretations. So, the central assumptions in feminist criticism is discussed by Maggie Hume. And Maggie Hume's education, a brief introduction about her. She is from the University of East Anglia and also from the University of London. She's also a professor of cultural studies and the author and editor of several books focusing on women, feminism, and noted author Virginia Woolf, often in relation to Woolf's interest in photography and film. This text is from Women as Contemporary Critics and focuses on chapter 1 only. So, feminist criticism shares three basic assumptions according to Maggie Hume. 1. Literature and criticism are ideological since writing manipulates gender for symbolic purposes. So, literature and criticism share a same set of belief system where gender is manipulated or contrived or sketched in a way from a male chauvinistic symbolic purpose. So, how literature is written by men and the critical analysis before feminist criticism has always been a lopsided one. There are sex related writing strategies, and how women wrote is how women were allowed to write. This is primarily very true of the canon of literature that has been produced on women and also in the second half by women because gender counts and sexual oppression exists. Gender counts because being female or thinking as a female does make a difference, even if it is only from a social or a historical perspective, and it is very true from a literary perspective. And the third point is the continuing tradition of literary culture uses male norms to exclude or undervalue female writing and scholarship. At a time when Maggie Hume writes about feminist criticism, not much of women's writing was acknowledged or celebrated. Not much of women were in the forefront. And even though, if they were in the forefront, how their works were analyzed were particularly from a male's perspective, and the female writing and scholarship was largely undervalued, be it in literary circles, be it in anthologies. The writing of women and their scholarship were just an appendix that one could note. But things have largely changed from then on, and now there are volumes of feminist writing and women's perspectives, and there is a female tradition of critical analysis. But when it all began, these are the three basic assumptions that Maggie Hume points out as feminist criticism, and their assumptions where one is concerned about. So, what does reading as a woman mean? In the text, Maggie Hume quotes Jonathan Culler, where he speaks about on deconstruction. Reading as a woman is to play a role that critics, where male or female, can be set up, even if they have to look it from a female perspective. Jonathan Culler makes note that a male can quickly escape into masculinity or patriarchy for critical analysis. So, having said that, Maggie Hume states that to be women readers and therefore feminist critics, we have to understand that a gendered reading must foreground several perceptions simultaneously. So, this has to be noted because diversity and identity counts. And it is also stated who we are is part of our reading process. And there is a lot of subjectivity, like reader response critics. Feminist critics believe that the perceiver makes a big impact on reading. So, therefore, feminist critics are interested in the historical and cultural identity and politics of both readers and writers. So it is important that we must first simultaneously must read with the experience of our biological sex, wherein only a woman can speak or read or understand or write about the totally female experience, example on menstruation or reproduction, which is more of a fact for a male writer than an experience for a female writer and also a reader. And the second point is we read with a gender identity, with our self created condition of femaleness from mother and the identity or a childhood. So read as a woman. You don't have to be a female to read as a woman, but the female experience has to be considered when you read as a woman, and to analyze text from a feminine point of experience and view as the women writers do. The third point is we read with a gender role, with a consciousness of the social construction of femininity that has been largely created over a period of time, and that is quite intuitive and that is quite innate for a female reader, wherein she creates the meaning as a writer and co creates the meaning of a feminine experience as a reader, because men and women, of course, read and write differently. Feminist criticism, as Maggie Hume states, opposes three problems in literary criticism. One is the problem of a gendered literary history, where criticism is thematic and assumes a women reader as a consumer of a male produced work. So, what does a feminist critic need to focus is we have a gendered literary history where the his story matters than the she or the her story. And criticism is absolutely thematic, and mostly the woman is a consumer, as what Ellen Showalter would call a feminist critic, CRITIQUE, of a male produced work. And the second problem of feminist criticism is creating gendered reader, offering new methods, mirroring of mothers and daughters whose language can become literary. The language of a mother, the language of a daughter has to become literary, and it cannot be a statement of a fact or just a factual sentence without the essence of the role that is understood by the person. So, creating the language of the particular experience of the female roles is also a problem which needs to be addressed. And the third one is feminist criticism has to make us act as woman readers, creating new communities of writers supported by a language spoken for and by woman. So the women's experience matters. Validation of the personal experience always creates the new language which has not been explored or experienced by male writers to talk about the female experience, because the female experience is strangely only of the woman, because, or naturally, if I may say so, and it can evoke the language that is necessary to express that experience. So, one, the problem a feminist critic has to face is the gendered literary history, and second one is to create gendered reader, where we offer new methods of the language that is particularly feminine, and the third one is to create new communities for writers, especially the ones who are speaking about the woman's experience. This is a beautiful poster, which is a wartime poster of Rosie the Riveter. This poster is important, where a woman is speaking about we can do it. And Sojourner Truth says, if the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, together women ought to be able to turn it right side up again. To see it not as a rebellious code, to see it as an innate strength that emanates from within. Like, it is important that we revisit our experience, re-evaluate our literature, and rewrite the feminist uh, uh, idea of the female experience, and create a new literary landscape wherein it reflects the experience of the woman, where Maggie Hume calls it as the golden voice, a voice that speaks the truth of the soulful experience of a woman. Thank you.